This is my CDC soft hackle dry fly. For the hook I'm using a Partridge SUD2 in a size 14. For the thread I'm using light olive uni 80. For the body I'm using olive dyed turkey biots. For the wing I'm using 2 plumes of CDC. For the tail I'm using Spade Hackle fibres, and these are dark dun. For the first hackle I'm using a blue dun cock hackle, and for the front hackle I'm using a Partridge neck feather. Now come in with your tying thread and catch it in immediately behind the eye of the hook, and bring those thread wraps down to about a third of the way down the hook shank. And now we're going to take 2 plumes of CDC and we're going to match them up so the tips align, and we'll just stroke them in so they get a nice flat bunch. Something like that. Now we're going to offer them up to the hook and just judge the length of the final wing. I'm just going to take my silk back up the hook shank, and now with a simple pinch and loop I'm going to seat down those 2 CDC plumes. Come in with my scissors and just trim off the waist end. And now I'm ready to mount my tail fibres. So I'm just going to take my spade hackle and I'm just going to brush those fibres back and cut off a nice clump of hackle fibres. I'll just take that one out there. Cut off the little curly ends. And now we're ready to offer it up to the hook. Check the length, and I think that's okay there. And now in tight touching turns, bring that tying thread back down the hook shank. And as you can see, I'm firmly trapping down those tail fibres. There we go. And now for the body, I'm just going to fret out a single fibre of olive dyed turkey biot. I'm going to trim the end off and I'm going to offer it up to the hook shank so that cut end finishes where the CDC wing was. And just come in with a couple of tight wraps and just bring my thread up the hook shank, firmly binding down that turkey biot. There we go. And as you can see, I've got a nice smooth underbody. If you want, you could just put a dab of varnish on there, but I don't really bother. Now taking my hackle pliers, I'm just going to grip that turkey biot and start to wrap the body of the fly. And your wraps want to be slightly open so you're not crushing those little flume fibres there. and just continue up the hook shank, forming the body of the fly. And you can see it's producing a nice segmented look to the fly. Now come in with my thread and just trap that butt section down with 2 or 3 nice tight turns. One more in front so it's really snug. Cut off the waist end. And now we're ready to mount the first hackle. And what I like to use is Indian cock capes, something like that. So it's not a genetic cape, and it gives a more lifelike effect to the fly. They're not as densely hackled. Again, come in with my fly tying thread and thoroughly bind that down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the stalk off, just peel that wing back. You got enough room, there you go. And now to wrap the hackle, and you don't want it to be densely packed. If your hackle twists like this one is doing now, it doesn't really matter because you want a nice buggy look to the fly. You want it to have that semblance of life. There we go, those hackle fibres are splaying out all over the place, which is what I want. Now taking my thread, I'll just bind that down with a couple of nice tight turns. I'll just loosen the hackle pliers, and what I'll do is I'll just pull back that CDC wing, and I'll come in with my fly tying thread and again bind down that hackle with a couple of turns in front of the wing. Trim off the waist end and just push that back a bit. There's 1 or 2 I don't like. And now we're ready for the front hackle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fret the hackle fibres back to expose a nice little tip, and I'll just strip one side of the hackle. So I don't want it to be too densely hackled, so I'll just strip this one side. And just trim that tag end down a bit. And now ready to mount the hackle in. I'll just brush the wing out of the way and catch it in with a couple of nice tight turns of tying thread. I'll just trim off those waist ends there. And now taking the hackle in my hackle pliers, I'll start to wind that front hackle. I like to keep it reasonably sparse, so I generally do 3 or 4 turns of hackle. And just fret them out of the way a little bit. There's 2. 1 more. There we go. Now bind down that hackle stalk with your thread. Couple of nice tight turns. One in front just to clean up the eye. And now trim off that waist hackle stalk. Just clean up the eye a little bit. I'll just brush them back, and now come in with my whip finish, and I'll just create a nice, neat whip finish to the fly. Make one more turn maybe. There we go, and that's it. Pull your thread tight. Trim off the waste end of thread. And there we have the CDC soft hackled dry fly.